Hello, everyone, and welcome to one more episode of MetaCast, the podcast of the Meta-Analyses Academy. Today, I have an incredible guest here with us, Camila Verônica Freire. She is a Brazilian doctor who is currently in the United States doing a research fellowship at Harvard Medical School. She's got many skills in research as a doctor. She's got social media skills. She's an excellent communicator. She's done a ton of research. She's going to tell us all about her journey to getting this research fellowship, what her activities are like as a research fellow. She's going to give you all tips on career, really strong advice that will benefit all of you. So I'm glad you're joining us in the MetaCast, and I'm going to transition to Camila for an introduction. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, Dr. Rhanderson Cardoso. I'm really happy to be here. It's a great opportunity to talk a little bit about my story, my journey at this point. So I'm really happy to share with you guys about this.
Fantastic. We're going to start with your current position right now, which is a really prestigious one as a research fellow in a top academic institution here in the U.S. Before I ask you a few questions about that, I just want to remind everyone that what we discuss here today is not affiliated with the institutions where we work. The opinions are exclusively our own. And if you're tuning in for the first time in this episode, in this podcast, we discuss successful careers, people who have done extraordinarily well, coming sometimes from challenging backgrounds and have excelled in their career in their current phase of trainee or clinicians, surgeons, and so forth. So make sure to watch all the episodes. And if you want to learn how to do systematic reviews and meta-analysis, also join the Meta-Analyses Academy waitlist. So Camila, tell us about your current position today. What's your official job title? What do you do on a daily basis? And walk us through that your current position.
That's a great question. So right now I'm a postdoctoral research fellow in cardiology at Brigham and Women's Hospital, affiliated with Harvard Medical School. This is a position for postdoctorate, so people that have done a PhD before or an MD before. Even if from your country you've done an MD, but it's actually a bachelor, it is considered MD in the United States. That's why you can do a postdoctoral research fellow. That's a common question that I receive a lot. Because in Brazil you do 6 years of medical school, similar to the way a lot of countries in Europe does. So people ask me a lot, how are you a postdoctoral research fellow if you only do medicine? So in the United States, medicine is a postdoctorate. So you do undergrad and then after you do a doctorate, and that's why you can do a postdoc after medicine. But it's also a role for a lot of PhD students after a path after a PhD to become a faculty and to follow your journey into research. So that's a very interesting position that I love to talk about because the reason why I'm here is because I'm trying to follow the physician-scientist track, which is very common in the United States, but a lot of countries still struggle with inserting research into medicine. We are more trained to be clinicians, and I'm trying to do a mix of both. So it's a great opportunity to be a postdoctoral research fellow because I have full time dedicated to do my research and improve and become the scientist that I want to be throughout my training in medicine as well.
And you've been very successful in this position. You know, I get to work with you on that job. I read CT clinically. You do some of the CT research in cardiology, and you've even won some awards. You know, can you tell folks a little bit about the acknowledgments and awards that you've received as a research fellow in what? It's been 1 year or so?
It's been a year, and it's been very productive. When I interviewed for this position, my mentor, he was looking for someone that could stay at least 2 years in the position. And that was perfect for me because I wanted to stay as long as possible doing research before residency. You have to navigate exactly how many years you're going to do dedicated time in research. It's not going to affect applying for residency later. I can talk about that later. But I wanted to do really committed time with research because my plan is to become a scientist, be a PI in the future in 10 years, something like that. So at first, starting the job was kind of very challenging to me. Everything was new. I was very blessed to be received in a very productive and friendly group with amazing mentors. It's a large group. We have data scientists, data analysts. We have clinical fellows working with us, attendings working with us. We have our main PI. So it was a big group. And at first I was kind of like, I don't know exactly how I can be myself and be proactive and do something, because everyone, like, they're doing their thing and they're amazing in this. I was like, how can I show that I can be useful to the group? So I started like talking to everyone individually, trying to understand their role, what was open for me to do, to contribute. And it took me a couple months to understand the job. And I was kind of learning the job, and my mentor was very nice to me because he received me saying that it's okay. You're going to feel in the beginning that you're learning and you don't have much to do because you're still like understanding what's going on. And we do have a lot of projects going on. So it took me a couple months to understand what was going on. And as soon as I got to know everyone and understand what they were doing, I understood how I could help them. And after being able to help the group, I could start like trying to navigate through my own project. And that was why I received a few awards. I was nominated an early career investigator by the association, the ASPC, the American Preventive Cardiology Association. And it was very nice. I got in the 3rd place, and it was like one of my main first author projects. And that was great, not only because of the award. I think like for us scientists, the award shows that you're doing the right thing, but it's also a great moment for you to share with your team the work that we've done together. I got to practice with my mentor. I got to, be able to talk about my research, something that I was very interested in. So it's been very productive, and I've been learning a lot. So that's very exciting too.
And what's your day-to-day like as a research fellow?
That's a great question because it's interesting. I used to send emails to people asking to shadow them and get to know their routine. And now I get those emails from students, and I'm always like, what they want to see? Like me in the daily basis lab, I'm seeing data, running data, transferring data. I'm typing on my computer the whole day. So when you do clinical research, you are surrounded by your computers. You can get to be in the lab. And when I say lab, you're probably picturing the lab, the scientific lab with experiments. But for clinical research, our lab is a lot of computers and data running. So my day-to-day, I get to experience that part of going to the lab and working on my projects, working on the other projects. I do a lot of things that is related to transferring large amount of data, analyzing those data, writing my own manuscripts, helping someone else. Since I have this background of creative PowerPoint, I also help a lot with visual things in the group, so visual abstracts and everything related to that. But something that I'm very fortunate is the fact that I can also get some experience in the reading room, so I can shadow the attendees. So I'm getting a lot of like knowledge in imaging, which was like, I never thought about this before. I haven't even done internal medicine, and I can get to see cardiovascular imaging and learn with it, and that's amazing. So I've been learning a lot about that. I've been practicing doing my own images that is going to be useful for research or for educative content. I can also go to grand rounds. Today we had an amazing grand rounds with Dr. Eugene Braunwald. For those in cardiology, you must know he's like the father of modern cardiology. And we do have that every week, not only cardiovascular grand rounds, but internal medicine, and I can go to all of them. So I do a lot of things related to the research, but I have support of my group to be also seeing, shadowing and learning in other contexts. So that's very interesting too.
Fantastic. And how do you see this opportunity as a research fellow in the wider context, in the broader context of a career, in the sense that a lot of people listening are mostly interested in residency, and they see a research fellowship as a bridge into getting into a competitive residency. But in your case, it sounds like you clearly have an eye towards the research itself. Obviously, in this case, it's really a great opportunity because you learn the skill sets, you meet the people, you develop these talents that will be really important in a research career. How do you see this for someone who is not super interested in that, but just rather wants to use it as a bridge to getting into residency?
I think that's a fantastic question because I get these a lot. A lot of people, they want to match into very competitive programs, specialties, or very competitive academic programs, even for more, I wouldn't say easy, but like, with more positions open, like internal medicine, for example. And they always ask me if doing a couple of years of research is going to help them get there. And I always say that that's never guaranteed. For some specialties, yes, having research is almost like a must. I would say surgical specialties, neurosurgery, those things that you really have to stand out because you don't have a lot of positions, so it's very competitive to get them. So I would say that doing a research fellow can be a bridge, and I'm not going to judge if you do that, especially because sometimes you don't have to love research, but you can do research. You can do well doing research, even if you don't love it, just for a while, for an ultimate goal. But if you hate research, that's not for you. Don't put yourself to do that because you don't have any security that you're going to match in a great program doing that, especially if you don't like it and if you're not going to do that very well.
I think most people are neutral. There are some people who definitely don't like research, but I think most people are neutral. And I agree with you. And I would just add that you have to consider not only the risk that ultimately you may still not match, but that's a risk that if people assume anyway. I think the most important thing for people to consider is the value of time that people, especially junior, as when you're starting out in your career, you just finished medical school, people don't often realize that, it's time that you're putting in right now. You're doing 2 years of a research fellowship. In your case, it's super valuable because you're learning the skills, you're meeting the people, you're getting better towards residency application in the future. But as you mentioned, if you're going to apply for internal medicine and you do well in your scores and you publish a lot of papers even without the research fellowship, like a lot of our students in the Meta-Analysis Academy, then you probably don't need the research fellowship.
Exactly. It's always like a balance. You have to really think through and understand what is the story that you're going to tell people. And that story is going to be like your personal interest, and also is going to be what you've done and what you want to accomplish. So it's always like telling your story, and research time can be very positive if you're trying to overcome a possible red flag or not a great application that you have. But you got to be very honest to yourself too, what you want with this, and be honest with the possibilities that you have. So a research fellow can be extremely productive, and also the things that goes beyond research, the fact that you're going to be in the hospital talking to some people, getting to know them, that helps a lot too. But I would say we have pros and we have cons. So you have to put that on a balance and see what's best for you. Because if you're a fresh grad, you've done clerkship, you have a great application already, and you've done meta-analyses, you have everything set up. Do you really need to do research fellow if you don't love, if you're not that excited to do it? Because it is time that you're dedicating away, like after your graduation. It is time consuming. You won't be able to study for the exams, for example, that much. A lot of people do at the same time, and that's possible. But you got to understand that you're committed to something that you got to do every day, show up and work. So you really have to ponder everything and go through the reasons why you want to do it. And always be very aware of the story that you want to tell. Why is that important for your own story? In my case, I'm passionate about research. Research has always been my escape from the part of medicine that gave me a hard time in med school. I love bedside, I love talking to patients, but I'm very sensitive as a person. So I'm the type of doctor that gets home and think about all my patients. And sometimes in medicine, we have like great wins. So we do amazing things. We save lives. We made an impact. And another time you get home and you feel like you lost some battles too. And that was really consuming to me. And when I managed to do research at the same time, I always felt like, okay, today I didn't have a great time as a doctor because of the odds, something that I cannot control. But I'm doing research that is going to impact all the patients I cannot see. And that made me happy too. So that's why I do research. And that's my story that I always like to tell.
Yeah. It's a good one. You're going to do well when you interview for residency. It's a good one. you clearly practice.
I mean, I've been telling these stories to a lot of students. We're going to talk about social media And every time that you have to do elevator pitch and, introduce yourself to someone, I like to get to know myself very well before I am introducing myself to someone else. So I've been like really going through all the reasons, and that also keeps me going daily basis, because sometimes like doing research, you feel like, oh my God, what am I doing here? And then you're just like, okay, let's go back to the reason. And then that really helps me.
Yeah, the mission is really, really important. So just to wrap up this topic, I want to add a quick comment on the value of time. As I said, you when you do a 1 or 2 year research fellow, you're putting in the time before residency, and that time could be better spent for some people. For example, in doing subspecialty training, or at the very least, just being an attending later on. If you finished your training earlier, you would be an attending for those 2 years, and at the very least, make a lot more money. So you have to ponder the financial and the time consequences of doing a research fellow. But let's move beyond that, and let's presume that someone listening to us has decided to do a research fellowship, whether because they think it will be really necessary for them to match, whether because they really like research like yourself. How does one get a paid research fellowship opportunity like you did?
That's the question. Because right now in the US, we do have a lot of positions for research fellow, and especially when it comes to clinical research and medicine, a lot of labs, they don't have enough funds to bring a research fellow, to bring a student. So sometimes you have to be doing research in the US as a volunteer. And I mean, that's also a lot of work. It's a job that you're doing, but I understand the gaining of the experience. So that's why people do that as a volunteer in the labs. They're trying to do the research to become able to get grants and funding as well. So that's how it happens. But we do also have a lot of paid positions. And when people ask me like how to get a paid position, I'm always like, you have to apply for the ones that are formal, and you also have to go through those who you're going to get to know in a different way. So someone is going to tell you about it, because it's very competitive. And when someone is willing to pay from their grant to get a research fellow, they want someone who's going to be a good match for the team, that's going to do a great job, productive, to bring something that you know, your background, something just willing to know. So I'm always like, you do have to go to those positions that are available in the website, and you can find that going through the institutional websites, the hospital websites. There's like always a job page that you can search through. And when I say this, don't only try to find research fellows ones. Also look for clinical coordinators, research assistant, because those are roles in labs that labs really need, and they're willing to pay for it. And sometimes when you apply in your international doctor, you can explain your goal, and they can be like, oh, okay, maybe we can hire you as a research fellow, or maybe you can start as a research assistant, and that's going to be also a research position, because in the end, it's not about the position that you have, but what you've been doing, the type of research that you've been doing, what you're publishing. So try to search for a clinical fellow, postdoctoral clinical fellow, for research fellow and postdoctoral research fellow, but also for research assistant, clinical coordinator, others like this. And generally when the position for postdoctoral research fellow is paid, they're expecting you to have something to bring to the group, either a statistical knowledge or a methodology they're really good at, the meta-analysis people. There are a lot of labs looking for that too. So you can also try to go through LinkedIn, Twitter, and talk to your mentors, talk to your peers, talk to people that went there and did something. Because sometimes a lot of positions, they don't get to go to the website because someone gets the position before it goes to the website. So talk to your professors, to your mentors. Networking helps a lot in that moment. And sometimes you can start unpaid and then apply for a grant with your mentor and become paid. I've seen a lot of research fellows that has been like this. In my case, I started as a paid position. I got to know the position that way that I'm telling you guys. Someone, a mentor of mine, let me know about the position, and then I applied. There's a lot of people interviewing, and I was chosen, thank God. But like what I'm trying to say is like explore the possibilities. Those that you can see, those that you're going to have to email, sometimes sending cold emails to navigate and see if they have positions that are going to be open soon. It's going to be really nice. And also talking to all the postdoc research fellows, because they will know. Sometimes they're leaving their position and they're going to like indicate to you to go there. So it's a little bit of like networking also and mentorship as well. I'll talk a lot about mentorship because my mentors has been like everything to me. So that's very important too.
Yeah, I agree. There are multiple avenues, and you mentioned several of them. You have to be on the lookout and actively search, send emails, look for what's publicly posted. Social media is another great source, especially Twitter. Follow the attendings or the researchers who publish a lot in the area that you're interested in. They may post those positions. Send them an email. Send them a direct message on Twitter.
I think even NIH, I think they publish the list of people that got a grant. Because if a lab has a grant, it's more likely to hire people to work with them because they're gonna have they have money to pay. They generally they send the budget expecting to pay someone to help them with the research. So you can try to see if you search, for example, Harvard has the Harvard Catalyst that you can see the researchers, and you can also always they have the NIH grants that they have active at this point, so you can try to email them. Always be polite and ask your mentors and professors to check the email, but that's a great way to find position as well. There's no like magic recipe to get those. It's definitely more competitive, but you can do it because I've done it. I wouldn't have another way to do it without a paid position, and I've done it, so I recommend you always trying.
Yeah, you mentioned that you wouldn't have conditions to do it otherwise. Would you mind sharing just a little bit more about like your background, about growing up and some of the challenges, and obviously just whatever you feel comfortable sharing, but you've come so far, such a long way considering some of the social challenges in which you were raised. Are you able to share some of those challenges as a medical student, even before that, as a pre-med?
Yeah, I always like to talk about this because I can inspire other people that have come in through similar backgrounds as me to see that it's possible. It is harder, but it's possible. I remember once I was in med school and we did this volunteer in low income, like a disadvantaged neighborhood. I was born in a disadvantaged neighborhood. So I remember talking to one of the teenagers. It was like a teenage group and we were trying to do some health education with them. And I remember talking about my journey, and this girl came to me and she was like, how come you don't have parents that are doctors? I was like, no one in my family was ever a doctor. Like my parents barely my mom barely finished high school. She never really was really into studying. My grandma never finished middle school. And I was telling this to her and she was like, I thought the only way to become a doctor was having parents or someone in the family that could help you with. I was like, no. And she was fascinated. And after that, she was talking to me about how to apply, how to do the Brazilian SATs. And that moment, I really understood about the power of telling this story. And as I said, I came from this disadvantaged neighborhood. My family always tried to give me the best education they could with a lot of sacrifices. So things didn't come easy for me. Going to med school was not easy for me. There was a point in medical school that I almost dropped out because I didn't have money to fund me through it. I went to a private med school in Brazil and you have to pay for it. And my family couldn't help anymore. I was with a lot of debts and I almost thought about giving up. But something about coming from these challenges is the fact that you become very resilient. And before giving up, you think about all the possibilities ever. And that's what I did. In the moment that I was like, I had to renew my medical student ID. It was the transition between semesters, and I was really having trouble to continue paying for medical school. And then I just stopped for a full day, and I did this big brainstorm, everything that I knew how to do and how I could get money from it. So I'm just like, I'm very creative. I've been exploring my hobbies growing up as a teenager, doing a lot of Photoshop, a lot of PowerPoint. I work as a photographer when I was a kid, kind of like aspiring photographer. So I was like, how can I use those skills to help me here? I don't want to give up. I want to keep doing this. Like, this is my dream. I have to keep doing it. So I was like, okay, let me try to identify a gap in education. And one thing in my medical school that was really funny, everyone was into PowerPoint. We used to every presentation, everyone would come with different animation, something like that. But every time I was out of my medical school, everyone really was not that good in PowerPoint. And also the professors, sometimes they have a hard time with technology. And that moment, I think we are in 2020, like the pandemic time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to reach out to a few professors just to see how they feel about these ideas. Like, hi, doctor. The first doctor that I approached was a plastic surgeon. And I was explaining her my talents. I was like, I really know how to do PowerPoint. If you give me one of your classes, I can just like edit your whole class for you. And if you like it, we can like get into an agreement and I can do your whole presentation for the whole semester. And she loved it. And she hired me not to only do the PowerPoint, but I was helping her with her social media because that was the pandemic. And a lot of doctors, especially in like plastic surgery, dermatology, they're having like a hard time having patients. So I started working like this to my professors. It got into a point that I had more professors trying to get myself to do their PowerPoints than time to do it because I was still in med school,
And you created a PowerPoint course eventually.
Exactly, because I had like so much, I have this huge demand to keep editing PowerPoint, and I was making enough money to pay for medical school and also to pay for my living expenses. And then I was like, I don't have time to keep doing this. How can I just expand this even more? So then I had the great idea of starting a PowerPoint course online, something similar to the meta-analysis academies, but you understand there was like a PowerPoint academy, and I just recorded everything that I knew. And probably like a week, I remember that I was going to have like a surgery like before LASIK. And I was like, I have to finish everything before my surgery. I did everything in a week and I launched it on my Instagram, which was not very big at this point. And I don't know how the thing got viral. And I had much more students than what I expected to have. I was expecting to have like the professors were reaching out to me, the students that were reaching out to me to be in my course. But I ended up having, in the end, when I started doing this, I had over 7,000 students enroll in the PowerPoint.
7,000?
7,000.
That's insane.
That was probably 2 years, almost 3 years doing it. The first time that I opened, I had almost 1,000, and that was just like so unexpected to me. But I think the lesson that I got from this is that I'm very resilient, and I was willing to try everything that I knew. I even gave English classes. I was an English instructor for a while. And the PowerPoint came because I identified that there was a gap and there was like people searching for it. I remember that like in 2019, I posted a video on YouTube casually. I didn't expect to get anything from it, teaching how to do a PowerPoint. And that video nowadays, I think I have more than 1 million views.
Wow.
And that point, I think I had like 100,000 views. And I was like, okay, if people are watching this, they would probably pay a little bit to learn more. So that was how the PowerPoint Academy came out. And that really saved my life and saved my way through medical school. And to be very honest with you guys, I'm not a big business person. I'm not like, I wanted to do this because I had this goal, was to graduate in medical school. And I did that until that point. And after I graduated, I stopped doing it. And I'm really grateful for this journey, for everyone that believed in this. And I don't know if in the future I'll do that again or not. I think I'll be using those skills for research or for other things in my life. But that was a really important moment that makes a lot of sense.
You're going to get demand for the PowerPoint Academy. You know, people are going to start reaching out to you, asking for you to restart it. You have put together a Portuguese and English version.
Yeah, they still do. I got a lot. I had students from all over Latin America and other Portuguese-speaking countries too. But I something that I know is like, don't give up on your creative skills when you go into medicine, because for a long time I thought I couldn't combine both. That's why I ran away from medical school before doing it. But after you do it and you see there's a lot of space for you to be creative and to show your skills, and those are the things that make you stand out. Yeah. Because everyone's going to be doing research. And when I interview for my position right now, that was one of the big talks that I had in the interview, the PowerPoint Academy. So that was...
And Camila uses those skills every day because she impresses everyone in the division, in the department, in her research group by helping them still with PowerPoint until this day.
No, yeah, it's a big tool for education and for research always.
And tell us a little bit more about social media, about the importance that you see. You have a lot of followers and a big presence on like Instagram, for example, and YouTube you just mentioned. How do you see that and the complementary role that it has with your role as a doctor and as a researcher?
I think social media for me is my space to give back the things that I received. I always talk a lot about mentorship and how my mentors influenced me in every single way. So when I was doing the PowerPoint Academy, it was my professors were the ones who believed in me first. And the mentors that brought me to the United States as when I came as a medical student and right now. So I try to use this space in social media to share everything that I got. I do not believe in gatekeeping. Everything that I've learned, everything that I've been taught, it is open for everyone else to know. So I tried in social media to share about my journey, to inspire, to teach and to learn, because I get a lot of people, they're like my peers or even senior mentors that come to me and talk to me and teach me a lot. So this is a space, a safe space to share everything that I got. I really believe in collaboration over competition. This is something that I keep keep talking about this, the importance of collaboration and how you can use your influence to spread this, not only for yourself to get collaboration stuff. I've made friends in social media. I found mentors in social media, but I also connected other people. It's something that I learned. Sometimes you don't know about something, but you got to know someone that was very good at it, and then you like connect those two people together, and that's magical. So that's what I try to do. So this is a space for me to teach everything that I've been taught, and I think that's very special and powerful, and that's why I keep doing it, even though sometimes it's kind of crazy when you receive like a crazy comment. But I just have to focus on the positive part of it, and at this point, I've only gained more then I could say I had like stress over something very small that happens every time on the internet.
Yeah, certainly there's the negative points of it as well, but overall I also, obviously the positive parts greatly overwhelm and are more important than the negative, episodes that happen from time to time. You also got an observer position here in, I think a few years ago when you were still a medical student in Harvard, and you got some funding for it. Can you walk us through that and share that story?
Yeah, you guys, you probably realize that like all my stories about getting paid positions and trying to run a business to get money to pay for medical school. So also when I was in med school, I've always wanted to come to the US since I'm a little kid. I love Boston, by the way. The weather right now is my favorite. Winter is my favorite season. And even though I was born in Salvador, Bahia, because I grew up watching the movies and the academic system that I saw in the movies, the college experience, and all these big institutions that I now like work with or collaborate with or have mentors in. Those were my dreams when I was a kid. So when I decided to do medicine, I decided to do medicine because that was a journey that could get me closer to what I really wanted. That was to move outside of Brazil for personal goal, to explore another culture. So that's what I did. And when I was in medical school, I really wanted to have an experience that could confirm to me what I think I wanted, was to ultimately move out. But since as a kid, I never had the experience to go to Disney or to experience something outside of Brazil, that was my moment to do it, because I knew as soon as I graduated, I have to decide what I wanted to do. So this is a great story actually. Also in the pandemic, I was running the PowerPoint business and I watched this online lecture with Dr. Andre Davila, who came here to the podcast. You should see his episode. He's amazing. A great mentor of mine. I watched this episode on YouTube that another student from the southern part of Brazil posted on YouTube. I remember that I was fascinated by his story because I could see a lot of myself in his story. He told about his struggling as a research fellow, as a clinical fellow, how he moved out of Brazil to another culture. And I really wanted to reach out to him. And I was like, I got to know in this lecture that he was coming to Beth Israel, which is another affiliated hospital at Harvard. And I was like, how can I talk to him? He's Brazilian, but he was in the US. And I tried every single way to get his email out of Google, but I couldn't, because he was transitioning to another institution. And then I reached out to this student. Now we're friends and we laugh about this story. And I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I'm a student from Salvador. I really wanted to meet this doctor that you posted a video with. I was fascinated by his story. Could you ask him if he could give me his email? And the guy was like, I don't really know who she is, so I don't think I'm going to share the email like this. So he was just like, no, he prefers not to share the email. And I was like, okay, but I'm not going to give up. Again, being very resilient. I opened Google and I was like, okay, I'm going to find his email right now. I found this Curriculum Lattes, which is the platform in Brazil for CVs, and I found his profile in there. But there was no email, so I sent an email to the website asking to contact him, to give him my email. So I was like, okay, if he is willing to talk to me as a student, he's going to reach out probably. A day after, he reached out to me with his phone number.
Wow.
He's very approachable, very accessible. Even though he's a great scientist, a great doctor, he's always so down to earth to talk to us and teach us, and that was very amazing. So he called me, I think late in that week, and we went through all my goals and the things I wanted to do with research and clinical opportunities, and he was like, okay, let's collaborate with a few projects, let's keep in touch, I'll let you know when I have an opportunity for you to come here. And then one day, late in that year, he called me and he was like, hey, I think I finally organized everything here. If you want to come, you can come. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll be there. And I remember I had a friend next to me that moment, and the friend was like, okay, but how? How are you gonna go there? I mean, how are you gonna pay for this? Because I was making enough money to pay for my living and my medical school, but it's not enough to travel outside of Brazil. So I was just like, again, I'm going to talk to the people who's been teaching me, who's been helping me, my mentors, my professors. And I talked to many of them. I was doing research with this amazing doctor called Dr. Luis Correia, who really taught me how to be a scientist. He connected me with the Maria Emilia Foundation. It's a big foundation in Brazil, and they fund a lot of research projects in health, in education, in medicine. And they really liked my story, and they were willing to support me to come to the US. So they gave me a scholarship that paid for all my expenses to come here. I came in 2021. It was still middle of the pandemic. So it was very interesting because I was kind of one of the few students in the hospital, because only the students that really needed to be there were there, and I was one of them. And I had that moment, they gave me this opportunity. I was like, I'm going to do everything possible to really learn everything that I can, get to know everyone that I can know. I got to know you in person for the first time, you and your wife, Carol, who's also another great mentor in my story. So that was how it happened. So I know right now there are not a lot of funding available for you to do a clerkship or observership, but there's always this networking that can get you to some institutions that is willing to support students. And the Maria Emilia Foundation really made a big difference in my trajectory, because out of that experience, I could come back to the US as postdoctoral research fellow, and I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, I think your story in many, many different steps of the way, you've shown incredible resilience, as you said, but also this initiative of just searching for the opportunities and going after them and finding the people. And again, looking for these actively and being insistent, persistent is probably a key determinant of success, I think. In this podcast, we like to talk a lot about how people achieve different stages in their career where they're doing really well. And that's a recurrent element. In fact, Dr. André Davila, when he was here, he talked about that he loves to talk to people like yourself who ask for that opportunity, because the way he sees it, he said, is that the people who ask for an opportunity are one step ahead of everyone else. Yeah. So just the fact that you do that you took that initiative, I think says a lot.
Yeah, that's actually my advice for everyone. If you're willing to do something, you go, you ask for it. If you're polite, if you're respectful, it's not going to cause any harm to anyone. And if you get a no, that's part of life. You just get over it and you go, keep trying until you get your yes. And that's what I did.
Yeah, that's such a great story. So what comes next in your career?
Oh, that's a great question. I've been really focused on my research fellow for now because I love what I do. I'm fascinated about research. When I apply for many positions in the US, I also apply for MPH. I got accepted, but I didn't do because I wanted to focus on the postdoctoral research fellow. So I'm trying right now to decide with my mentors what is the best timeline for me to go further for residency. But I gotta be honest, I love doing research, and I'm gonna try to do as much as I can right now to be a strong applicant for residency, and also to be a strong scientist in my career as a doctor. That's my main concern right now, is to become the physician science that I want to be. And this moment right now is not only a transitioning moment for me. I'm not doing this, following a bridge to get into residency. This is my life. This is a very important moment for me. So I'm just really trying to make the most of the opportunity that I have right now, to be able to build this career that I am aiming to have.
Yeah, and it's quite the career. You're gonna go places for sure. You've already come so far. And to wrap up, Camila, walk us a little bit about for your meta-analysis results, because in addition to all that you've done so far, you're also one of our students. You've done extraordinarily well. You have meta-analysis publications, presentations and abstracts and conferences. How do you see the meta-analysis in this career of yours?
I think meta-analysis is a great tool. It's a very powerful tool that you have to have and be able to explore, because, my focus right now is basically primary research with primary data, but still meta-analysis is so important. It's always going to be important for medicine. So you got to know this, and you got to take the most out of this, because it's a great opportunity for you to be doing research with great mentors, without geographical barriers. And that's what I'm trying to do. So every time, my free time, I try to collaborate with some of the meta-analysis students. I cannot lead a lot of projects because I have my projects here in Boston right now, but I always collaborate with them. So I presented recently in American Heart Association, one first author from my lab and another co-author with people from the meta-analysis team. And that's a great community. And as I said, mentorship and networking is not only with seniors. You're going to also see that it's very important to be able to communicate with your peers, because they're also going to teach you a lot and you're going to teach them. And that's great. The collaboration is great. So that's what I got from the Meta-Analysis Academy. When I came here in Boston as a medical student with Dr. Andrea Davila, one of the things that I did in my clinical experience was presenting about a emerging topic in left bundle branch pacing. And I remember we didn't have much data back then to do a meta-analysis, but I kept in touch with everyone. And as soon as I learned meta-analysis, I decided to do a meta-analysis and contact everyone back. So I reached out to Dr. Andrea Davila, to Dr. Nicholas Palmieri, who was back then a clinical fellow, who gave me the idea to do this presentation. And I was like, hey, right now we do have data to do a meta-analysis. Let's do it together. So I just did everything. I gathered my peers. I did a meta-analysis. I sent to them as seniors. And that was very impactful. I presented in the Heart Rhythm Society meeting in Boston this year. And I'm writing some manuscripts right now. I've published some meta-analysis. I think 3 or 4 meta-analysis at this point. I have 2 ready to submit, all because of mentorship and collaboration. I cannot lead projects because I have my own projects right now, but you can always be engaged in the community. And that's something fantastic about it. As soon as you get in, you're going to see so many students really willing to do that with you, to teach you and to help you. And that's a great part of it. So I keep doing the meta-analysis because I think it's a great skill for any scientist to have. And I think that's been great also to complement my other research.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's great as a research fellow, even inserted in a community, in a group that's so productive, with the extraordinary mentor that you have, in Dr. Blankstein at Brigham. And in addition to that, to complement it with your own research, with your ideas for meta-analysis, I think is a great tool, a great resource. A lot of our fellows, a lot of our students in their research fellowships are not as blessed as you are to have such a phenomenal mentor. So they join programs that are not as productive, and then the chemistry doesn't go really well. So again, having that other source of publications, in addition to what is going on with the research fellowship, I think is a great resource for everyone to have. Mm-hmm. And then there are people who won't even need a research fellowship because they're just going to publish a lot. They're going to build the connections through meta-analysis. They're going to get publications, present in great conferences. We were just in Chicago the other day for American Heart Association. We had 50 of our students there. People won awards. People had oral presentations, travel grants. So you can get a lot done with autonomy without necessarily being in a world-renowned institutions like you are right now.
Exactly. I always think like if you want to become a scientist, a PI someday, you gotta be able to do primary data research always, but meta-analysis is part of medicine, like forever. It's like the top of the evidence that we have right now. So it's a great skill to have, even if you don't plan to have a research career. And it's a great thing if you're thinking about a bridge, something that is going to get you to residency that can help you a lot. But always, if you're thinking about doing a research fellow, I am very biased to say that I'm having a blast. I've been learning a lot, and I have great mentors, a great team. Dr. Ron Blankstein, he's one of the greatest mentors I've ever had. And I think even when I'm very old, I'm going to still look back and see the contribution that he had in my career. And I'm very, very, very lucky to be able to be in a group like this and to learn the much that I'm learning. I love learning. I'm a professional student. My mom says that to me a lot. And so it's great to be here too. So I think it's important to summarize that. Think about your story, the one that you want to tell, that you just told me that is good for interviews, and how you want to tell your story, and what you're going to do, what do you want to do, what are your dreams, and you can achieve whatever you want if you really want that. That's
such a great story. And Camila, I just want to emphasize this. She didn't talk a lot about this, understandably, but her social background was very challenging growing up, and even medical school. You've heard about the PowerPoint Academy. Just about self-funding, paying her for her own medical school studies, getting into debt to finish medical school. So it's really an inspiring story of resilience, of working hard towards your goals and just not giving up and looking for all these opportunities that show up in your career. They show up for people who consistently do a good job and then who look for them. You have to actively search for these opportunities. So Camila, congratulations to you. Like I said, really an inspiration. I'm looking forward to all the great research that you're doing, to the future steps in your career. And it's an honor to have you as part of the alumni of the Meta-Analysis Academy.
I'm really happy to be here. I'm a great fan of the meta-analysis group. I always advocate for it because I think it's a great, powerful thing that we have right now. When I was in medical school, I didn't have like a lot of research and a lot of opportunities to do meta-analysis like a lot of students have right now. When I meet them in conference, I get like so impressed by their work, their hard work, and I think that's gonna like pay off very well in the future. But yeah, I really hope my story could inspire you guys a little bit more. I think it's very important to share that even though you didn't come from like crazy fortunate environments, you can still, be able to succeed if you go through it and if you find the right path and the right mentorship and the support of institutions. That's what I've done in my life so far and what I've got. So I hope that inspires you to not give up even though the challenge, and just know that it doesn't matter what you went through. What matters is what you do with it. So I got resilient, I got hard worker, and that's what I try to spread. So I hope you guys feel inspired and you keep following your dreams. And it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. I learned a lot from you as always. So guys, this was MetaCast, the podcast of the Meta-Analysis Academy. Make sure to check the other episodes out. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at metaanalysis.academy, on Twitter. Also, we're on LinkedIn, YouTube. And of course, join the waitlist. Become a part of the Meta-Analysis Academy and learn how to do impactful research to transform your career. I'll see you there.